Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter, and that's Albion's Legacy, designed by Thomas Gofton and published by Linvander Games. Now, if at any point you'd like to check out this Kickstarter, and you really should, there's going to be a link floating underneath me on the video and also down in the comments section. Go over there, check them out, see if you might like to pledge to support the campaign. Now, what is the game about? Well, Albion's Legacy is a fantasy cooperative game that actually takes place in the world of King Arthur and Camelot. Each player takes control of a different brave knight, like the aforementioned King Arthur and Lancelot and Guinevere, and you're going to roam around Albion, placing down new tiles to represent different parts of the world being explored, and trying to solve different quests. Now, each player has their own personal quests, like finding an artifact, such as Excalibur or Lancelot's armor, while at the same time, the players as a group have a story quest that they need to complete in order to finish the game. They do not win the game unless they complete that story quest. But, of course, it's not that easy. As you're moving around the map, uncovering these different tiles, you have new roaming threats that you have to deal with that are going to try to destroy the knights or impede their progress. At the same time, time is running out. You have this despair track that's constantly ticking down, signifying that the knights have to get a move on and plan efficiently in order to complete their quests. And also, if the characters die in combat too many times, then you're going to lose the game. The different threats that they face are constantly sapping the virtue of the knights, in which case you might lose the game. So there's a lot of ways you can lose. There's only one way you can win, but of course, all good cooperative games are really, really tough. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the game and the different components. They already have some excellent playthrough videos on the Kickstarter page, so check those out for a more thorough walkthrough of how to play the game. But I will give you a brief overview, then we're going to come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of Albion's Legacy, a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. I'll have a link at the bottom of the video and also down in the comments section if you want to check it out and consider pledging to the campaign. Now, two things I need to stress here. First off, this is obviously a prototype copy of the game. The final version of the game will have much nicer components, and also I had to replace some components out, so the final version of the game will actually have etched special dice, so these are just some normal d6s I'm using here, and also these miniatures I'm using for the heroes are from a game that shall remain unnamed with a similar theme. But anyways, keep that in mind. A lot of the design may change as well, and even some different rules changes, so bear that in mind as we go through this. The other important thing to note here is that this is just a very brief overview of the game. There are already some excellent videos from the designers of the game up on the Kickstarter page if you want a very thorough overview of how the game is going to play. I'm just going to walk you through a bit of it to give you a flavor for it. Now, this is a cooperative game that takes place in the world of Camelot and King Arthur of Albion. Basically, what you're trying to do is solve a different storyline quest along with the character's personal quests. So you have these different story quests here that you'll choose at the beginning. This core version of the game only comes with 2, but there may be more throughout the rest of the campaign. So if you're able to complete one of these story quests along with the personal quests of the different knights, which you have here and which you'll select at the beginning of the game, then you will win. So here's Queen Guinevere, for example. Her personal quest is to find the Leondragons, find the tile Camelard, and then gain the artifact the Queen's Favor. Here you have Sir Mordred Pendragon, his personal quest of the heir to Camelot to gain the artifact the Clarent Sword of Peace. It'll tell you the different conditions here that you have to meet in order to actually gain that artifact. And of course, you can't really talk about this without talking about King Arthur himself. His personal quest is, of course, the Sword in the Stone to gain the artifact Excalibur. Now, some of the other different things that are on this card, you have little spots here. And remember, this may not be in the final version of the game. This player mat may change around, but for now, you have these spots here that hold different cards indicating weapons, special items, and armor. Down here, you have the different attributes, which are going to be different for every character. You have the same attributes with different numbers: prowess, loyalty, courage, altruism, and movement. A different type of enemy that they are favored against, and every character has a different special ability. So, for example, King Arthur Pendragon can take a wound token for another player anywhere to gain a destiny token. I know that Guinevere can heal another player anywhere on the map. Lancelot gets extra destiny tokens, and these are destiny tokens, by the way. You'll use these to fuel some of your different special abilities. There's a lot of different tokens in the game. And so on and so forth. You'll choose your character, you'll always have a different special power, and something to keep in mind. Now, how do you actually lose the game? Well, you lose the game through a number of different ways. Either by a number of characters being killed equal to the number of players, because if you die, you're not necessarily out of the game. You can just draw a new character from the box. However, once that number of characters that's died equals the number of players in the game, then the game is over. Now, the other main way that you might lose is called the despair track, which I actually don't have in this prototype copy, but it is a track that'll go along the side of the board that goes with basically 10 little stars that if every time the first player marker, which is this key token, gets passed around to a new round, that despair track goes down, and if it ever reaches the end of the track, the players will lose the game. You also have these virtue cards. If the virtue deck is ever completely depleted, and of course these are virtues like, prudence, destined, might, industriousness, and they also give you special abilities as well. The players will have these virtue cards. If this deck is ever depleted, the players will lose the game. So you have a lot of ways to lose, but only one way to win, which is by completing the main story quests and the personal quests. Now, all the players are going to start here in the round table starting point, and each player has movement points on their character card, which they're going to use on their turn, again, starting with whoever holds the key token, and you're going to use your movement points to move out of Camelot. Now, you can move a number of spaces equal to your movement points, or you can stop whenever you want to at one of these different symbols on the board to use the symbol of that space. But let's assume that you keep moving and you want to move off the map. You can move off the map here where there's a drawbridge or the sally port or the docks, and when you do that, you basically take the scouting action. The scouting action is going to let you draw one of these randomized tiles here and place it out on the board. Now, on the back of the tile, this is the back here, you have some limitations on how you can actually place this tile. So here it has a picture of these sort of rolling fields, or I guess mountains, and then the lake. That means that you could either put it over here on this side of the board or down here, because it matches up with either the water or the rolling mountains. Now, other ones might have different limitations. There's at least one wild here. This one says that you can only put it on the forest or mountains, which means you can't put it down in the water area. But assuming you meet the legal requirements, you'll be able to place it down on the board. And you'll continue to, as long as you have movement left, you can continue scouting and scout more areas of the map as well. Now, these are always going to be new things that you can, abilities that you can activate and use. And what's interesting is that if you keep placing tiles out, regardless of the map restrictions, if they connect together from different spots, which can be difficult to do all the way around the board, but it can actually be quite possible starting from these two different points down here, then you may actually be able to connect them and not have to worry about the restrictions normally found on the back of the tile. Now, all these different tiles have different abilities that you can utilize in their turn, and usually they're all the time, they're keyed into these different cards out here. There's a lot of different cards in the game, and each one is signifies something different. So, for example, you have your starting equipment cards here, which players will begin with. There's just things like leather vest, shoulder plate, protective cloak, and what all these do are basically when you would take a wound in combat, you can choose to break one of these protective equipment instead of taking the wound. So they're just purely for protection at the beginning, no special abilities, and you'll want to swap them out early. Other types of cards, you have the stables cards, which gives you mounts that you can use to increase your movement and give you some special abilities, although you won't be able to draw these until you actually get some different story tokens under your belt. Then you have special items like the White Swan-wrapped Lohengrin, the Banner of Sir Erector, Mirrodin Staff. All these give you special abilities, and you're only going to be able to use to gain them by completing different challenges on the map with the corresponding symbols on the game board. You also have better equipment here in the form of enhanced cloaks, Masterwork Brigandine, crossbows, Steel Hatter. You have these road cards. Anytime a road tile comes out, you're going to have to draw a card at random from here and deal with whatever comes up, like War Torn, Road Weary, draw and discard the top card of the Stables deck. Bonded Mount, Knight of the Long Knives, draw and discard the top card of the Artifact, Item, and Armory decks, which could be bad for you because you're losing more cards from the game. You have one-time use items like the Shard of the Grail, the Fate Stone, the Repair Kit, the Healing Flask. Every game needs healing potions after all. And you have these different artifacts. Now, artifacts are never going to be randomly drawn. These are actually the things that your characters are questing for. And once you complete the quest specifications, you'll be able to just take it. For example, the Excalibur. Gain 1 bonus virtue when drawing Excalibur. This virtue is returned to the deck if Excalibur is discarded. Can be discarded at 1 Dormery Pool or River Blue for 1 quest token. So those are the different things there, and of course there's a virtue deck, which I also mentioned. Now, some of these tiles actually have this little skull icon, which indicates a roaming threat. When there's a roaming threat, you're going to draw one of these roaming threat cards, and it will tell you one of these monster tokens to put out on the board. So, for example, Morgana Le Fay, you'll find the Morgana token and place it in the Valley of No Return tile. Another example, we have the Slumbering Dragons. You'll find the Slumbering Dragons tiles and put them out on their designated spot, wherever that might be. And those roaming threats are going to move around, and there's something that the knights are going to have to deal with. They're either going to have to combat them, try and avoid them to complete their other quests. However, some of the roaming threats have lingering abilities that are going to make the game harder to win or impossible to win if the knights ignore them and don't deal with them. So it's just another thing you have to keep in mind. You have white dragons, you have the Slaughter Bridge, the Great Old One, so all these different things. You have witches, druids, dragons, lots of different monsters and roaming threats that could pop out on the board that your knights are going to have to deal with as you progress through the game, while at the same time trying to complete your quest as best as you can. Combat and other challenges will be resolved with the dice. Now, what you're basically going to do, like I said, remember that these are there will be special etched dice in the final version of the game, and each of the symbols on the dice is going to correspond to the different attributes that the players have at the bottom of their card. When you're trying to pursue a different type of challenge, you're going to pick from one of the attributes that's available for the challenge, and you're going to roll that many dice. So let's say I was doing my prowess, I'd roll 5 dice. And then I'm going to try to get the prowess symbol. For every prowess symbol I get, that counts as a success for the challenge. Depending on what the challenge is, I may win or fail based on the amount of successes that I get. Of course, a 6, which is the mana symbol on the final version of the dice, is actually always going to be a success and count as 2 successes. So you're just trying to roll, use the attributes you best you can, and accrue as many successes as possible in order to overcome either the combat or the different quest challenge. And what you're trying to do is try to get as many of the quests and story tokens as you can to complete all the different knights, different quests, and the main story as well. If you're able to do those things before the despair track runs out, before enough players or characters die, and before you run out of virtue cards, then you are the winner. That's Albion's Legacy. Well, that's Albion's Legacy, and I think that 2 things struck me most of all while I was playing through the game. The first is that this is what a lot of people in modern gaming would call a sort of a hybrid game. That is to say that it's taking elements of Euro games and Ameritrash games and sort of blending them together into an altogether unique mix. You have some of the heavy strategy and efficiency and planning that comes from a Euro game mixed together with the variability of the game state, together with combat and the different very heavy emphasis on theme and story and different character interactions, things like that. Those are all sort of mixed together in Albion's Legacy, taking the best elements from those 2 different wide genres. The other thing that struck me is, like I already touched on, the variability of the game. There is a lot of elements in the game that can be switched up from game to game, giving you a different, unique experience each time. Of course, the tiles are the primary thing. Now, there's a limitation on how you place the tiles out there, which, of course, can be a good thing. You never want to just, you know, it's not a lot of fun to just randomly throw out tiles and you can go wherever you want. By having that limitation on how they're placed, that can force you into some more strategic thinking, while at the same time, when that tile comes out, you're never entirely sure what's going to be on the other side, and you have to kind of deal with that. Is it going to be a roaming threat? Is it something that's going to help you out, give you equipment, let you complete your quest? You don't know, but you have to put it out there and sort of take your chances. And of course, I like the element where you can eventually, you know, connect the different types of tiles coming from different sides, and therefore not have to worry so much about the restriction of how the tiles are placed out. At the same time, while you have the variability of the different tiles coming out, you have all these different decks of all these different types of equipment and special items and the artifacts that you gain trying to complete your quests, and the stables and getting the different mounts. You have all these elements that can change up and are different from game to game, just giving you a wide slew of options to choose from, while at the same time you have all these roaming threats going around the board with lots of different monsters and how you're going to use your powers and all your different character powers. All the characters are different as well. So there's a lot of uniqueness to the game. So many different things coming together that make for different and unique play experiences every time. And I think the theme, you would think that it's something that's been used a lot, but really while there may be a lot of fantasy games in the Tolkien, Lord of the Rings type universe, and maybe the Runebound universe, things like that, Dungeons and Dragons. There have not been a lot of really quality games set in the King Arthur, Camelot, Albion section of the fantasy mythos, and I think there's always room for one more. So who do I think this game is going to appeal to? Definitely people who are interested in fantasy and want that different type of experience than the Lord of the Rings or Dungeons and Dragons. People that want a heavy strategic game, but don't just want a dry Euro. They want a thematic game with a lot of different variability, a unique experience each time that doesn't just feel like a math problem, while at the same time not a random dice chucking fest where you don't have any control over what you're doing. You need to plan out your actions. You need to efficiently make use of all of your different powers and capabilities and equipment together with the rest of your party. Otherwise, you're not going to win. This is a cooperative game. You have to work together. You have to plan things out. You have all these different things looming over you, like the despair track and all these different monsters. And it can feel really tense, but at the same time, it's challenging. So I think this game is going to appeal to people that want a tough cooperative challenge, a thematic cooperative challenge, and a very strategic cooperative challenge. This is Albion's Legacy from Linvander Games, designed by Thomas Gofton, and if you're interested in pledging to the campaign, I'm going to have a link in this video and also down in the comments section. Check them out, see if it's something that you might be interested in. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and everywhere. Take care.